Hi, these comments are for SA. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com. I'm getting ready to read and error correct your writing practice test that you sent me. I have the TOEFL IBT independent writing rubrics in front of me, and then your essay here. Let's look at what you wrote in the email. Say, I'm one of your TOEFL Writing Bootcamp course students. At first, I couldn't figure out what was going on, but because of your clarification, I was able to figure out exactly who you are, and you are indeed one of my Writing Bootcamp course students. So this entitles you to 2 error correction videos. I will give you 2 error correction videos of your writing, and you can also send me 15 different writing practice tests to be scored over the next 30 days. Okay, so the prompt here is, do you agree or disagree? Children should work in small groups to enhance their learning process. Then you put, please correct my independent writing practice test and show me what I need to do in order to score 24 to 25 points on this writing task. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, so the first thing, let's take a look at what Microsoft Word thinks about it. I'm going to give you my initial impressions in a minute. So your editor score is 89. That's not bad. A good number, a better number, would be around 95%. So you can see that there are indeed some grammatical problems in this essay. Okay, document stats. This is also important. So what does artificial intelligence, what do they think about it? So I have good and bad news here. The good news is your average number of characters per word is 5.1. Anything over 5 is really good. So that means you have good, strong vocabulary words. You're just not using simple one-syllable words. You have some longer words in there too. The bad news is your words per sentence is 23.4, but it isn't extremely low. You want to try to increase that to maybe 26, 25 to 26 words. So you're almost there. Your grade level here is 12.5, grade 12.5. So anything around 13 or 14 is a good solid grade level, because ETS's E-Rater, the artificial scoring engine that's looking at your writing, is going to look at it in a similar way that Microsoft Word does. It looks at your grammar, it looks at your vocabulary, the number of, look at this, a number of words or number of sentences per paragraph and so on. Okay, so you wrote 399 words. I think you could develop it a little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, so here's my first impression. I think you're already, really at your goal or close to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get 29 to 30 points on the writing section of the TOEFL IBT. So at this point, I'm thinking you're probably a high 3, a low 4, where it says here, may demonstrate inconsistent facility sentence formation, may result in lack of clarity. You have some inconsistencies with sentence formation, but it really doesn't obscure any meaning as far as I can tell, right? So I'm going to put your score at 24 to 25 points out of 30. Okay, so let's take a look at each paragraph now. You have ways of education have a tremendous impact on our children's learning process. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to change this to educational How about educational methodologies? Get rid of have and put tremendously impact our children's learning process. And I'm gonna get rid of the therefore and put so in there to create a compound sentence here. You have what's called a compound complex sentence. I could put a comma here if I wanted to. I think I'm going to let it go here. So I'm going to use the so to separate the two independent clauses, and the second one is a complex sentence. What I did here is I'm getting rid of some of those grammatical words, and this incredibly increases your vocabulary level. Educational methodologies tremendously impact our children's learning process. So when it comes to the education, we said education already. Let's say instructional, so we don't repeat education twice. So when it comes to the instructional approaches, some people believe that working in small groups is the best way to enhance student learning, and others hold the opposite opinion. I'm going to get rid of I firmly think and then put, we already know that it's your opinion because you're writing it. Working in small groups we'll put effectively, and you put would and can. You don't want to mix those. It will help and it can improve. So don't do that. You don't want to do that. But working in small groups effectively. How about expands working in small groups effectively expands children's knowledge and can improve their communication skills. So your thesis has two specific points here. So we can at least look at that. Now we need to. What I did is I made this paragraph a lot more concise. So if you want to study more about this, if you go into my online TOEFL course, stealth.michaelbuckoff.com, in the grammar part of my course, I have a lesson. I think it's grammar lesson number 26 about being more concise. Now, I think that we need to increase the length of this paragraph now. So I'm going to show you some things that you can do here. I always recommend students that introductory paragraph consists of about 100 words. So these are the edits I made to what you wrote, and I'm expanding it right here to this is roughly 107 words. So this is what your goal is right here. So I added some things. Let's see what it sounds like. So children, one of our most important assets, will succeed depending on how much society invests in their education. And teachers should have the proper training to deliver the most effective education possible. Therefore, these educational methodologies will tremendously impact our children's learning process. So when it comes to the instructional approaches, some people believe that working in small groups is the best way to enhance student learning. However, others believe that these youngsters should be collaborating in larger groups, or that they should be studying individually to maximize their learning. In my view, so I put this back in here because it can separate the one idea from the other. In my view, working in small groups effectively expands children's knowledge and can improve their communication skills. So that would be the first change, is in the introduction there. So you can see what the changes I made to your original paragraph. You can see how I've expanded it below there. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. We have participating in small groups will help children share their ideas and build upon them to expand their knowledge. to be more specific. How about this? So instead of to be more, just say specifically. So we get rid of some of those shorter words. When children work in small groups instead of working individually, I'm going to throw a comma here and then a comma here. Again, you're mixing. You have when children work instead of working individually, it would be more easier. I'm going to get rid of it and just say they. And you don't want to say more and then easier, because the ER is comparative and then the more is also comparative. So there's no need to mark it twice, right? I'm just saying, so they will more easily initiate conversations about what they are working on. I would put by asking. I'm going to put by here. How will they do this? I'm using kind of a prepositional phrase to kind of it's an adverbial prepositional phrase of manner, by asking each other questions regarding their topic. And this is a really good example here. I love this. For instance, when my son Zayab was in Al Majid Elementary School. Now notice how you have a complex sentence. So when my son here, you see what happened? And you forgot to put that subject in the independent clause part. So be careful when you're forming your complex sentences, right? It consists of two things. You'll have a dependent clause, which has the subordinated conjunction here, plus the subject here and then the verb. Then you have to have the main subject in the independent clause along with the main verb. So for instance, when my son Zayad was in Al Majid Elementary School, he had some difficulties in math, especially in solving fraction. I'm going to put solving fraction word problems. So I'm removing the S from fractions because you're putting it in front of a noun. So even though it's a noun, it's occupying an adjectival type position. So adjectives don't take the plural S. So especially in solving fraction word problems. However, when his teacher rearranged his seating, I don't think you have to say, when the teacher rearranged the seating, how about when the teacher rearranged the seating like other students, he was placed into a small group Okay, I think I got it. However, when his teacher rearranged the seating, like other students, he was placed into a small group and he started to do classwork with his peers, which enhanced his math ability because he was able to ask other group members questions. Okay, I think we need to do something like this. I'm going to turn this into a present participial phrase, thereby enhancing his math abilities because he was able to ask other group members questions. Now I'm going to put he was able to ask other questions to he was able to ask other group members questions or other questions to other group members. So this is an indirect object shift here. So we kind of have an indirect object and a direct object. That's why I'm going to keep both of these plural. So he was able to ask other group members questions, and they shared their techniques of solving fraction problems faster. I think we're going to stop it right here. We might have too long of a sentence here, maybe. Cons. We'll throw in a transition word here. Consequently, they shared their techniques of solving, notice, fraction problems faster. Yeah, I think that'll work. So therefore, Zayad acquired a lot of new information and his math level rose dramatically, which is why I think children should be involved in small group. You want to change this to small group work or small group. I'm going to use collaboration, I think is better. Therefore, Zayed acquired a lot of new information and his math level rose dramatically, which is why I think children should be involved in small group collaboration. Okay, so I think it's a good paragraph here. I like it. Your example, you cannot do much better than that. So you understand exactly how to develop your paragraph because it's 152 words for the paragraph, right? And then when you get to, for example, with my son Zayad, so you talk about that one example in 103 words. Are you kidding me? So if I'm looking at the actual rubric here, that's really 5 when it comes to the example. It says here is well organized and well developed. So if you spend 102 words discussing one particular example, if that is not well developed, I have no idea what development means. My name is not Michael, right? So obviously you did a really, really good job on that. You got to keep up that. So that was excellent how you did that. So in the next paragraph, you're kind of adding to what you've already said. My only suggestion here is try to keep these 2 paragraphs. If you're only focused maybe on 2 reasons and you spend development or detail for those 2 reasons, keep these paragraphs about the same in terms of the word length. So you have 122 words. You got 152 on the other. So I may add something in here. Okay, now notice you have participating in small groups will help. What if you use something like this? In addition, working in small groups and having teamwork discussions will allow children to develop their communication skills. Working in small groups and having teamwork discussions will allow children to develop their communication skills. In other words, this approach can help children in conquering their fear. It can help children Yeah, I think in conquering their fear, and we need to think about that preposition. I think that you're using the same grammar structure here. This is a parallelism issue. So I'm going to change it to this approach can help children in conquering their fear, and in building up their self-confidence and self-esteem. For example, and then you have one more. My niece Linda You have my niece Linda was a kind of a shy girl and socially isolated. I'm going to put a comma here. A shy, socially isolated I'm going to put shy and socially isolated. I'm making things more concise. Linda, shy and socially, my niece, for example, my niece Linda, shy and socially isolated when, fortunately, her history teacher recognized her issue and decided to assign her to work in small groups. I would say to work in a small group. Let's see if we have it now. This is difficult. For example, my niece Linda, shy and socially isolated, when fortunately her history teacher recognized her issue and decided to assign her to work in a small group. We might say, in fact, her teacher divided the class into 5 groups, each group composed of 5 students. Now I'm giving you some big credit for that grammar there. That is really effective. I like how each group was composed of 5 students, but you didn't want to use a second independent clause there, so you combined the 2 sentences, and that's really good how you did that. Children in these groups were able to demonstrate their opinion loudly. And this one, I think this is good grammar here, the way you have it here. I'm going to just put 2 in there to remind me that that's an infinitive and not part of the main verb. So children in these groups were able to demonstrate their opinion loudly and to express themselves without any hesitation. See, what you're missing here is in this one, there's a lot more concrete detail in this paragraph. You put solving fraction word problems. They share their techniques of solving fraction problems faster. This paragraph is stronger because you have more concrete detail in there. I think it works a little bit better. Therefore, let's take this third body paragraph and let's add some concrete detail to develop it a little bit more. So pay attention to what I did here. I just added this. That's it. You can kind of see what I did right there. So let's see how it fits within the context of the paragraph now. And now I think both paragraphs are a little bit more consistent. Okay, so let's start off. So it's pretty much the same in the beginning, right? You can compare. It says you can compare the difference between the two here. So in addition, working in small groups and having teamwork discussions will allow children to develop their communication skills. In other words, this approach can help children in conquering their fear and in building up their self-confidence and self-esteem. For example, my niece Linda, shy and socially isolated, okay, my niece Linda, I got to put a verb in there, that's my mistake. For example, my niece Linda was shy and socially isolated uh, when fortunately her history teacher recognized her issue and decided to assign her to work in a small group. In fact, her teacher divided the class into 5 groups, each group composed of 5 students. Children in these groups were able to demonstrate their opinions loudly and to express themselves without any hesitation. In my niece's case, she was too timid to ask the teacher in front of the entire class how to determine the common denominator in a fraction, but she felt very comfortable asking her other 4 group members about finding common denominators. Eventually, her self-esteem was boosted dramatically because of these interactive high-impact learning activities. Her communication skills were enhanced. You might say, moreover, will add to the previous idea. Her communication and interpersonal skills were enhanced. I don't think we have to use all of that there. We'll just use a shorter sentence right here. Maybe say therefore, I think maybe to conclude it. And we have a fairly long paragraph now. See what we did? So we have 164 words here, and then we have 150 something here, and I think that's good enough. Okay, let's see here. So I think the main thing is consistency. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong one here. Let's get rid of this. So we went from 120 words to 160, so added about 40. So then both of the paragraphs, notice how they both looked adequately developed there. Yeah. 152, then 165 there. You see what I'm talking about? So the key here is consistency. So if you use this type of telling detail in the first body paragraph, then you're expected to use exactly that kind of telling detail when you move into this next paragraph. And that's why I added this information here. So to keep the 2 paragraphs consistent. Okay, let's look at the last paragraph. In conclusion, due to the reasons I stated above, I firmly believe that working in groups is the best way for students to learn, not only because that will improve their mental abilities, but also because this will expand their social circle, which leads to having communicative and cooperative students. Good. So I think that's fine. And I like that parallelism, not only because, but also because. The only thing I would do is I don't think that you need to use a comma here, because it's usually more common to use a comma if you're right before that coordinating conjunction, if you're creating a compound sentence. But that's not what you're doing here. You're creating a complex sentence, so that's why I'm removing the comma there. So the way that you wrote it, without my changes, it's still good. I think that you have a good chance of scoring around 24 to 25 points the way that you wrote it. And I think with my revisions, I think that your essay now will score around 30 out of 30 points on the TOEFL IBT exam. Okay, so let's take a look at it one more time. So it says, children, one of our most important assets will succeed depending on how much society invests in their education. And teachers should have the proper training to deliver the most effective education possible. Therefore, these educational methodologies will tremendously impact our children's learning process. So, when it comes to the instructional approaches, some people believe that working in small groups is the best way to enhance student learning. However, others believe that these youngsters should be collaborating in larger groups or that they should be studying individually to maximize their learning. In my view, working in small groups effectively expands children's knowledge and can improve their communicative skills. Participating in small groups will help children share their ideas and build upon them to expand their knowledge. Specifically, when children work in small groups instead of working individually, they will more easily initiate conversations about what they're working on by asking each other questions regarding their topics. For instance, when my son Zayab was in Al Majed Elementary School, he had some difficulties in math, especially in solving fraction word problems. However, when his teacher rearranged the seating like other students, he was placed into a small group. And he started to do classwork with his peers, thereby enhancing his math abilities because he was able to ask other group members questions. Consequently, they shared their techniques of solving fraction problems faster. Therefore, Zayad acquired a lot of new information, and his math level rose dramatically, which is why I think children should be involved in small group collaboration. Okay, so I said therefore here. I'm going to change this one then. Always think of the words you use in context of other words. Right? I'm going to add as a result here so I don't use therefore too many times. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. In addition, working in small groups and having teamwork discussions will allow children to develop their communication skills. In other words, this approach can help children in conquering their fear and in building up their self-confidence and self-esteem. For example, my niece Linda was shy and socially isolated when fortunately her history teacher recognized her issue and decided to assign her to work in a small group. In fact, her teacher divided the class into 5 groups, each group composed of 5 students. Children in these groups were able to demonstrate their opinions loudly and to express themselves without any hesitation. In my niece's case, she was too timid to ask the teacher, in front of the entire class, how to determine the common denominator in a fraction, but she felt very comfortable asking, probably don't even need this word, she felt comfortable asking her other 4 group members about finding common denominators. Eventually, her self-esteem was boosted dramatically because of these interactive, high-impact learning activities. As a result, her communication and interpersonal skills were enhanced. Then we have our conclusion. In conclusion, due to the reasons I stated above, I firmly believe that working in groups is the best way for students to learn, not only because that will improve their mental abilities, but also because this will expand their social circle, which leads to having communicative and cooperative students. Okay, so let's take a look at the grammar one more time. Okay, so let's go down here. Document stats. Let's see what changes we made with vocabulary and sentence style. So do you see what we did? So we increased the vocabulary length a little bit. I think we went from 5.1 to 5.3, and then we got up your words per sentence to about 24.9, and the grade level now jumped up to 14.1. Right? So we definitely made some changes with vocabulary and sentence structure, and we made some corrections in there. And I think that had an effect on the grade level of the writing. Now the next thing is there anything in my online course you need to be aware of? Anything that you should be studying right now? I'm going to go over some things right now for you. Okay, I think your vocabulary is strong, so I'm not going to make any recommendations there. Let me go into the grammar part of my course here. Give me a quick second. Okay, I'm looking at it right now. Here's the grammar part of my 7-step system course. I think sentences with positives, lesson 4, take a look at that. 4.1, practice with the positives. Lesson 9, sentences with multiple clauses. I think that's a good some grammar you should be studying right now. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe just review your verb tenses. And if you want something more specific, if you go to Google, here are some keywords. Remember, you were kind of mixing and matching what I call present possible and then present impossible conditions. You don't want to mix those in the same sentence. Okay, here's the keywords: English grammar and present possible, present impossible, and past impossible conditions. So make sure that you can control your verb tenses with those three types of implied realities. Okay, I'm looking more here. I think the rest of it's not too bad. I think lesson 27, I told you about this one, I think. Lesson 27, being more concise, I think that's a good lesson for you to take a look at right now. And then maybe one more thing. If we go over to my blog here, let me look. I think I have one lesson you might want to look at, TOEFL Writing Details. Okay, let's look at this. Yeah, this is a good one, TOEFL Writing Details. Okay, check this out. Yeah, it'll give you a little bit of practice with writing more details. Now remember that you were very, very strong in that first body paragraph with that first detail about Zayad, right? But when you start talking about Linda, I think you could have been a little more specific with the detail there, and that would have helped expand that paragraph a little bit more. So that's the reason. I think the key here is consistency for you. So if you want to do some practice, it'll say here, you read an assertion, then write a 100-word concrete detail to defend that assertion. So the first one, it says, workers who change jobs frequently will get promoted more, thereby helping them to earn more money to support their standard of living. So then you want to see an example here. You should write the example first, just one example, like you did in your second paragraph. It's about 100 words. Then you can compare to the example that I provide here. So you can see that type of specificity that you're trying to get to in this type of academic writing. Okay, and I think that's it. So overall, I think that you are definitely in a good spot with your writing. You don't have really difficult problems with grammar, punctuation, word choice, and so on. So generally, you're pretty good at controlling your language use. I think you just need to be a little bit more consistent in how you develop the idea. So whatever you do in one paragraph, you want to do something similar in the other paragraph. So there you go. There's my changes to your introduction and then your paragraphs here, so you have an idea of what you can do, not just to get 24 to 25, but to get 30 out of 30 points on the TOEFL IBT exam. And thank you for sending me your writing practice test, and I look forward to reading your next essay.